All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're talking about a massive game changer for your relationships. Shifting from just hearing sounds to actually, truly listening. You know that feeling when you're talking and the other person is nodding, but you just know they aren't taking in a single word? Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating, right? Well, today we're breaking down the mechanics of communication to show you exactly how active listening is literally the ultimate shortcut to building unbreakable trust.
So here's the big question we're tackling today. How can listening and empathy improve relationships? If you want to build absolute rock-solid trust, whether that's with a coworker, a partner, or a friend, you've got to understand how connection actually works. It's not just about the words flying back and forth. It's about how those words are received, processed, and respected. We're going to explore how listening and empathy are the fundamental building blocks for upgrading literally any relationship in your life. But before we get too deep, take a look at this mood meter and honestly ask yourself, where do you land right now? Are you hyped, super calm, maybe a bit anxious, or just drained? We're starting here because, well, active listening requires us to show up, to be present. You literally can't build trust with someone if your brain is 100 miles away, consumed by your own stress or exhaustion. Checking your own mood is step one to clearing the mental space you need to truly focus on someone else. So let's start at the surface. Hearing versus listening. Here's the crucial thing. Hearing and listening, not the same thing at all. Passive hearing is basically just biology. It's just your ears catching sound waves. But active listening, that requires processing the meaning. It takes real, intentional effort. Look, trust is never built through passive hearing. It's forged when the person speaking feels like you're putting in the actual effort to decode and value what they're saying. And honestly, nothing illustrates this better than the classic phrase, "I'm fine." We've all said it, and let's be real, we've all gotten in trouble for misinterpreting it. If you're just passively hearing the words, you might take it at face value and move on. But active listening, that forces you to tune into the tone. Depending on how they deliver it, "I'm fine" could mean they're genuinely happy, deeply heartbroken, seething with rage, or secretly freaking out. Catching those subtle, unsaid cues, that's how you prove to someone you're truly paying attention. Now, let's dive beneath that surface and decode the actual intent. To really understand someone, you have to split the message in two. First, there's the content, the literal dictionary definition of the words they used. And then there's the intent, the actual driving force behind the message. It's the what they are saying versus the why they're saying it. Misunderstandings, which, by the way, are the absolute enemy of trust, almost always happen when we react to the content, but totally miss the intent. Think about it like a giant iceberg. Imagine a mom telling her teenage son, "It's already 10 p.m. That's the tip of the iceberg, right? The surface content, just stating the time. But look below the water. What's the hidden intent there? Is she just giving him an update? Is she complaining? Is it a warning? Or is she just saying, "Hey, please go to sleep"? To build trust, that teenager has to respond to the intent hiding beneath the water, not just the fact that there's a clock on the wall. Let's do a quick practice run on spotting this hidden intent. Listen to this. Your project is due tomorrow. Now imagine your best friend in class saying that to you. Okay, now imagine your teacher saying it. Now imagine your biggest, most competitive rival saying it. The content is exactly the same, but the intent shifts entirely based on the context. Is it a helpful reminder, a subtle threat, encouragement? Active listeners kind of act like detectives. They piece together that context to find the real intent. This brings us to the next big piece of the puzzle, the empathy bridge. Okay, imagine this scenario for a second. You just transferred to a new school, you literally don't know a single soul, and you're eating lunch all alone in this massive, crowded cafeteria. How would you feel in those shoes? Pretty vulnerable, right? Lonely, anxious? Empathy is your ability to mentally step into that exact scenario and actually feel the weight of those emotions. If a friend comes to you with a story like this, how you react in that moment dictates whether trust is built or broken. And that brings us to a massively important distinction. Sympathy versus empathy. Honestly, we often think we're being helpful when we're actually just being sympathetic. Sympathy is saying, "Oh, that's sad." It acknowledges the pain, sure, but from a safe distance. It kind of leaves the person feeling isolated. Empathy, though, empathy builds a bridge. Saying something like, "I can see why you're upset. Do you want to talk about it?" validates their emotion. It pulls up a chair right next to them and offers a real human connection. Empathy basically says, "Hey, you are not alone in this." Let's try a quick response makeover to see how this plays out in real life. Look at dismissive phrases like, "You're overreacting," "That's your fault," or "Just move on." Guys, these are absolute trust killers. They completely invalidate the other person's reality. But swapping those out for empathetic validation completely flips the dynamic. Instead of "You're overreacting," imagine hearing, "I can tell this is really overwhelming for you." You know what's crazy? You don't even have to agree with them to validate their feelings. That is the literal superpower of empathy. All right, let's get into the practical stuff, the active listening toolkit. Take a mental inventory with me right now and be brutally honest with yourself. When someone is talking to you, do you actually maintain eye contact? Or are you sneaking glances at your phone? Do you avoid interrupting, or are you just sitting there waiting for your turn to speak? Do you listen carefully and ask questions? If you're answering sometimes or never to these, you're leaving a lot of trust on the table. These physical cues are exactly what tells someone they are truly valued. These 5 concrete steps right here are basically your blueprint for any successful conversation. Think of it as a cycle. First, you listen actively. Then, you maintain that crucial eye contact. Next, ask a follow-up question to dig deeper into their intent. Fourth, summarize what you heard so they know you caught it. And finally, respond empathetically. If you hit these 5 marks, you're proving to the other person beyond a shadow of a doubt that they are being heard. And that is the absolute foundation of trust.
Now, let's see what this looks like when we put trust into action. Building genuine trust means recognizing one really fundamental truth. Everybody walks into a conversation with a totally different perspective. Someone's intent is shaped by a crazy, complex mix of factors. We're talking their unique culture, their family background, past experiences, core beliefs, and even just their current environment. When you actively listen, you aren't just hearing their words, you're respecting the entirely unique history that shaped their worldview. And that level of respect, that's the bedrock of trust.
Reflecting on all this actually helps us spot our own personal triggers and habits. Think about how you would finish this sentence. I understand others better maybe it's when I actually put my phone away, or when I take a beat to pause before responding. Recognizing your own communication quirks and adapting to what others need is exactly what takes you from being a good communicator to an absolutely great one. So I'm going to leave you with a final challenge today. Take what we've unpacked in this explainer and actually put it to the test. What is one specific way you can show empathy this week to build a stronger relationship? Maybe it's digging for the intent behind a frustrating comment. Maybe it's ditching sympathy and opting for real empathy. Or hey, maybe it's just maintaining better eye contact. Pick just one tool, try it out, and watch how it transforms your connections. Because at the end of the day, the real question isn't just, are you listening? It's, are you listening well enough to be trusted?